Hello and welcome to another social studies class. This one I'm going to try to keep short, as I've said time and time again, but I'm really going to try this time. And this one I may end up redoing because it is quite late at night, and this is hopefully I will be able to stay awake through this one. Because if I can't stay awake, there's a good chance you won't be able to either. So today we are on our flip folding notes, and we are looking at where the different European colonies created, I'm sorry, see, that's a problem, staying awake too late. Where the different European mother countries created their colonies. And we have looked at Portugal in our previous video, which is not on here because, as you remember, their colonies were in Africa and Brazil. Then we looked at New Spain, the mother country being Spain, of course, and they were mostly down in Central and South America with the conquistadors conquering and stealing and whatnot. But they do come up and expand into Florida and the Southwest United States, what is now the Southwest United States. So tonight, or today, tomorrow, this morning, whatever it is for you, we are looking at the French and the Dutch. The French are going to have a vast empire in North America as well. The Dutch, not so much huge, but it's going to have a lasting impact. So let's get started with New France. When you think of France, when you think of New France, you should think fishing, furs, and France. Furs being this guy here, this poor guy is going to become a fur. Fishing, furs, France. That sums up New France. When we're thinking of gold, God, and glory, the gold for France, while they would have loved to have found gold, they weren't obsessed with it like Spain was. They were interested in making money in other ways, primarily fishing and furs. So France's claim, you need to know, starts along the St. Lawrence River. St. Lawrence River, hopefully you know where it is, up above New York State, between New York and Canada, flows from Lake Ontario into the Atlantic Ocean. And way back in the 1530s, Jacques Cartier, one of the famous French explorers, sails up the St. Lawrence River as far as wherever here it is, and this is going to become the claim that begins as New France. Now, at first, France is primarily interested in the fishing aspect. This area here and off the coast of North America here, around here, this is going to become prime fishing area. And you may remember how we talked about, even before there were colonies here, fishermen started coming over and fishing these waters like Cape Cod, etc., or the Terra de Barcola. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the land, you probably know it as the land of the codfish. And they start going ashore to smoke and dry their fish out and build these settlements. So this is going to become sort of what will grow into the earliest stages of New France, which will include Quebec later. This map kind of shows the area right here. You can see this island here. This is the St. Lawrence River. This would be Lake Ontario. So this would be Canandaigua, somewhere in here. Now, this claim is enhanced about 70 years later when Cartier's countryman, Samuel de Champlain, you might remember him from one of the Explorer videos, sails through the St. Lawrence River as well and goes beyond into the Great Lakes. And really, he becomes the father of New France by really solidifying the claim here along the St. Lawrence River. Now, the St. Lawrence River is also a sort of a semi-boundary between our friends, the Iroquois, and their enemies, sometimes enemies at least, the Algonquin. And when Samuel de Champlain arrives, he happens to arrive in the midst of an ongoing war between some of the Algonquin tribes and the Iroquois. And Samuel de Champlain, right here he is. This is a self-portrait that he himself engraved. I'm sure that's not why he looks so heroic there. But him and the French become involved by becoming allies with this Algonquin Indians. And when they become partners with the Algonquins, this will be a long-lasting relationship between the Algonquin and the French, and it will serve both somewhat well, I guess. Um, but it will really, the rivalry there is going to eventually they eventually put us on a path to becoming the United States, which we'll talk about later. But for now, just remember French allies with Algonquin. Algonquin not really friendly with the Iroquois at this point in history. Now, as the French press further inland and become trading partners with the Algonquin, one of the main products offered for trade by the native people are furs, animal furs, especially beaver pelts. Our poor friend the beaver here will probably grow up to be a hat, one of these. Perhaps you have one of these at home. And there's the beaver doing his work of building the beaver dam. I'm sorry, darn for you children at home. I wasn't swearing. I was talking about the beaver's construction site right there. If you want to call it a darn, that's okay. So the beaver darn, the beavers, the hats, these proved very, very popular in Europe for a substantial amount of time. For about 200 years, beaver hats are sort of supreme in Europe. And that's really going to drive the French's expansion through North America and is also going to kind of drive what will put us on the path to the United States. So if you ever see a beaver, thank him or her for putting us here, perhaps. Now, besides the gold part, the French were also interested in the God part. They were also a Catholic country like Spain, and they also wanted to spread their religion into the New World. So they sent over missionaries as well, and they built missions as well. Maybe not quite as much as Spain did, but they still did so. Now, we'll see, and we'll talk about this more later. I'm not going to get through the whole thing right now, but as beavers are overhunted, mostly by the Algonquin, because the French didn't send over a lot of people. They sent over a small number of fur traders who would trade with the native people, with the Algonquins. They would buy the beaver pelts that the Algonquins had hunted. So it's kind of win-win for both the Algonquins and the French, and loss for the poor beavers. The beavers would get overhunted and driven almost to extinction, which will cause the Algonquins and the French to press further inward through the Great Lakes area, and eventually down the Mississippi River. And this is all driven by beaver furs and the demand for beaver furs. And it will lead to, as the rivalry between the Algonquin and the Iroquois over who's going to control the beaver trade in this area, it's going to lead to a series of wars called the Beaver Wars. All right, so here you see another map. This is, if you look closely, Nouvelle, which in French means new, and France, which means France. So this is New France. This is their map of New France. It is part of Canada, but here you can see, if you see these Great Lakes here, you probably know, oh, here's Lake Ontario. That would put Canandaigua right about here, which, even though on the map it says New France or Nouvelle France, if you look more closely here, some people would differ, because it also says the nation of the Iroquois Confederacy. This is the Iroquois Confederacy here. So even though France would like to claim this land and the Algonquins would like to claim this land as New France, this part here where we are in Canandaigua was still under firm control of the Iroquois. All right. Eventually, just like Spain, France will build a vast empire in North America. All of this area in blue will be part of New France. They will divide it up into what they call Canada, what they call Louisiana, but what we are going to call it for now is just New France. And it will extend not only through the Great Lakes region, but also eventually down the Mississippi River to New Orleans, which is famous for its French Quarter and French cuisine, because Because of the French, because of the Iroquois, or because of their fur trade. So, filling in the notes here, you will have to read along on the pink sheets and kind of match up. I don't have it directly, exactly word for word, but it's pretty close. So you can pause here, but I will read it to you because it's always a good idea to read the notes. Jacques Cartier and Samuel de Champlain explored along the St. Lawrence River, that's key, you need to know that, and claimed the area as New France. Later, explorers expanded the territory to include the Great Lakes, the Mississippi River. Oh, I wonder why that's underlined. Maybe because it goes in a blank on your sheet. As a matter of fact, that is why. And the area known as, quote, Louisiana, which is not necessarily the same thing as Louisiana, the state today. All right, the slow fade out. Here we are back to France. Jacques Cartier and Samuel de... Oh, this is a repeat. This is the part I'm looking for. Gold, God, and glory. For them, gold equaled fish and furs. Remember, fish, furs, France, fish, furs, France. Trading partners and allies with the Algonquin Indians, rival to the Iroquois. All right, more about France. They also sent missionaries to spread the religion, and they built missions, and that the rest of that's a repeat. All right, next up is Holland, aka the Netherlands, aka the Dutch, and they are going to all be, well, they're only one place. They're going to be the mother country to the creatively named New Netherlands. New Netherlands. And the thing to remember about New Netherlands that will make it easier to remember is that Henry Hudson was from Holland. Henry Hudson was from Holland. Keep that in mind, and it'll make it easier to remember where we're talking about. We are talking about this area here along the Hudson River. The Hudson River, of course, explored famously by Henry Hudson when he was looking for a water route to Asia, but instead finds the Hudson River. But it will prove very valuable over the years. And one thing that is cool about the Netherlands is we have lots of cool maps. This is not the coolest of them, but this shows you major settlements of the New Netherland colony. All of these red dots here, and see if you can find my hidden red dot now. All of these red dots were settlements of the New Netherland colony. The one that is going to become by far the most important is this one, New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam for those children. It is located down at the bottom of the Hudson River where the Hudson River hits the Atlantic Ocean. Right here. It's a place today that goes by a different name, but it was named after Old Amsterdam back in Old Holland. This is New Amsterdam in the New Netherlands colony. This guy is not an explorer, but this is a man. If you look at this man in the tan hat here, this is supposed to be a guy named Peter Minuit. Peter Minuit, not an explorer, but he made one of the most important real estate deals in the history of the Americas when he purchases an island. This island, oh, you can't see the island there. I'll show you a better map of an island. He purchases an island which the Indians called Manhattan. That's the way the pronunciation came down to us. So just remember the man in the tan hat, the man in the hat tan, the man in the hat tan hat bought Manhattan. Get it? Manhattan. Man tan hat. Oh, this is a statue of the real estate transaction going on. This is located in New York City, way down at the southern tip of Manhattan, or Manhattan as some people would like to say, in a place called Battery Park, which is located right on the tip. Now for a moment or two of cool maps. Don't fast forward through the cool maps. They're really cool, believe me. So here you can see one of the oldest maps of Manhattan. Yep, here's the spelling. And this is the North River, which is actually the North River, which is another name for the Hudson River. So this is a map that's turned on its side. This is the island. If you follow the red dot here, this island here is the island that the man in the tan hat bought, Manhattan. And this is the island of Manhattan. This is the Hudson River right here. We have some other views of it. If you were to lay it on its side, still facing the same way here, And here you see up here the mainland, and down here you have Long Island. This blue area is the water. This is the Hudson River here. This is what's known as the East River. The Hudson River here, this is Manhattan Island. Now, this is an early map from about 1630. You can see there's, well, maybe you can't see, but if you look right here, there's a fort built on the bottom, which they called the Battery. And you can see already, way back then, this is a really important port city. It's a great natural harbor, great port for shipping, and the Hudson River will make it even more valuable. But they built this colony. This is going to be their capital city of New Amsterdam, or New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam has the Battery on the end, and this is another map that shows it. Very tip of Manhattan. There's lots of ports. There's water. There's lots of ships. They build a wall here to keep out invaders and to protect themselves. Fast forward many, many years, and this will be the location of Wall Street. You may have heard of Wall Street. That's where stocks and bonds are traded, the financial center of the world. And then there's this big broad street here, which will someday become what is known as Broadway. You may have heard of Broadway. All right, so this is showing the map today. This is the current Manhattan versus what it used to be. You can see the island is much larger today because over the years they have used landfill to build this real estate out further because it is so valuable of real estate. Probably the most expensive real estate, maybe not in the world, but definitely in North America. I should say definitely, probably in North America. San Francisco might make a claim for it as well, but probably Manhattan. This is the view of, on one side we have the Hudson River, on one side the East River. Here is the southern tip of Manhattan. This right here is the Battery, which is their fort. Today, this is Battery Park, where that was located. This is the same view, but let me go back for 1 second. This is the Hudson River on one side, the East River on the other side. Right here, this tall building is the World Trade Center, the new World Trade Center, of course, to replace the Twin Towers. A better view of it, the Hudson River up here. You have the Brooklyn Bridge over on this side. Up here, you have Central Park. So you can see it's a little more crowded than it used to be. Somewhere in here is Wall Street and Broadway. There's another view. I just like these cool views of Manhattan because you can see the Hudson River flowing up here towards Albany, and you can see even all the shipping ports down here. It's still an important place for trade and shipping, etc. If you were to click on this, you can see this is when the new World Trade Center was built, there's a let me go back. Sorry, you can't watch this apparently on this tab. I had the wrong thing, but I'll show you that in class maybe. So I'm going to keep going here. Peter, the other Peter you have to know, he's not going to be super important, but he is important. PeterStuyvesant. PeterStuyvesant, you can see he has a peg leg, a wooden leg, and he supposedly ruled with an iron fist just because he was kind of like a dictator. He was an all-powerful governor of the New Amsterdam colony, but he is going to be the man who surrenders the New Netherlands to the British. What happens is over in Europe, there's a war between the Netherlands and England or Britain, and they fight one another, and as a result, he is forced to surrender New Amsterdam and the New Netherlands colony to the British, who will rename the whole area New York. Both the state or the colony New York and the capital city will both become New York. So for filling in notes purposes, the Netherlands, Henry Hudson explored and claimed lands along the Hudson River, became known as New Netherlands. The main city was New Amsterdam. Here's something important. Unlike many of the colonies we talk about, the Netherlands, the old Netherlands, the old mother country, they had a reputation of being tolerant of others, meaning accepting of others' religions and nationalities. They didn't really necessarily care so much what your religion was or what country you were originally from, if you could do business with them and help them make money. And that kind of got passed on to the the New Netherlands colony as well. And really, New York City or New Amsterdam, unlike some of the other colonies that only attracted people from their country, the New Netherlands, attracted people from many different countries and many different religions, and sort of became a little melting pot, if you will. And these people are going to form a trading partnership with the Iroquois. And when the British take over, that partnership will be taken over by the British as well. So the British and the Iroquois will be on one side, the French and the Algonquin on the other. And some of you might know where this is heading, but for those of you who don't, I'm not going to tell you tonight. So just remember, Old New York was once New Amsterdam. There's a song about that I could play for you, but I'm not going to right now. So that is all. Hopefully that wasn't too long. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Don't forget to do the questions. Thank you.